Phyllis and Marlon Wade, and we have been with the church since 1967. And we're grateful for the church because all three of our children have been married in the church. And I've had grandchildren that were baptized in the church, even one great-grandchild. So we're thankful for the church.
I'm Janice Romack, and I started coming to this church in 1985 after I was first married. When my son was in third grade, Linda Marcotte asked me to start teaching the third grade Sunday school class, and I've kind of been stuck in the Sunday school classes ever since then. Really love the kids, and that's one of the things that has always been a joy to me at this church. One of the ways I've always seen God work in the church is through VBS. We will be challenged to find enough workers, wondering if we have enough kids, and then at the end, God just pulls it off for all of us, and it's just been a joy to see that happen. One of my great memories of the church happened almost 20 years ago when I got deathly sick, and this church and many others came to their knees praying for me, and I had an emergency liver transplant, and it was just so evident that God was working through me. And once I figured out what that was, why God kept me around, He told me to write, then He told me to talk, and it ended up being some filling in at the pulpit once in a while, and the church has just been extremely, extremely supportive of me in all those ventures. And it's just been like a church with a church of family, and that's what they are here at Greenville First.
Hi, I'm Anna Piper, and I started coming to the church across the street that burned. I started coming to that when I was real young. My grandparents and my parents came there. And I remember going when we got, I think it was into junior high, they sent us across the street to what was now the Friendship House. And I think Jim Kessinger was my teacher back then. But anyway, as like a lot of teenagers, I kind of grew out of the church when I was a teenager. And so I was out for several years. In the meantime, I got married. I had 2 sons. And when my youngest son, Jason, was in kindergarten, he was in a really bad bus wreck. And he was down in St. Louis for several days. And after he came home, Reverend Elmer Fenton, bless his heart, he came to our house and he talked to us for quite a while. And I got to thinking about that after he left, and I told John that I wanted to come back to church. So we did, and we've been coming back ever since. He and I were both involved in quite a few activities. I've been on trustees. I was in United Methodist Women. I was in the choir for a little while. And he loved to work on the landscaping. So yeah, we've been in quite a few activities and still love this church.
We are the Slaymakers, my wife Linda and myself, and we've been with the United Methodist Church here in Greenville for probably
25 years.
25 years, so time really flies. We were asked to say a few things about our experience, and just when you start thinking about the experiences we had, it just leads from one event or activity to another. But when we came into the church, I was brought up in the Methodist church, and I asked Linda if it'd be all right if we came and visited the Methodist church here in town. At the time, Tim Pate and Becky were with the church, and we had teenage daughters that were leaving a group of friends and worrying about if they're ever going to make another group of friends or if they'd be accepted. At the time, they had a pretty active volleyball and softball league between the churches for the girls and actually the young adults too. And it was really a smooth transition from that respect. But I don't know. I'll just say one other thing. I got fond memories of being out at the Mesker softball diamond out there.
So much fun.
We had so much good times and fun.
Yes, they always made us feel welcome, and we had a good time. Tim and I were actually part of the Luminaria program with the cancer, and it was awesome. We did a good job. We always had a lot of fun, and had a lot of people show up, and we give a public relations speech at the WGEL. Had an amazing time, and just a great church to be a part of. We've enjoyed every minute of it. We've been involved in lots of stuff. He's on the chair board of trustees, and he has been several times.
Has been in the past.
Yes, in the past. And I'm on the what is it? The Pastor Parish. Sorry about that. So, but we've kept involved, and we've did a little bit of everything from teaching in the nursery. We've got out and helped fundraise. We also went on a mission trip, and I was going through cancer at the time, but we still stuck to it, and we got it done. Had a lot of fond memories of this church.
Yeah, other memories that I have anyway. I've been off and on the board of trustees, and I was on the board of trustees, and chairman at the time. There was a discussion on life. I think we called it life extension programs that we underwent, and that included new windows in the fellowship hall, and eventually we put in a new heating and cooling system, which beforehand we had a boiler. It seemed like we were always running into problems with the boiler, and we went to a geothermal system, which has been a godsend, I think, for our church. But Jerry Watson had not only was our pastor, but he had a strong background in economics, and he really helped nurture along that geothermal system that we put in the church. So I have strong memories there. And I think, some fond memories I also have is Linda mentioned the mission trip, but the Last Supper plays that we would put on, where we some of the gentlemen in the church would volunteer their services. I believe I was Simon the Zealot for 2 years that I remember, but it was a very well put together production, and just a lot of fun. But seemed like I might be rambling here a little bit, Linda.
No, I think you're fine. We also did a woman one too, like Monday, Thursday, and I was involved in that. But before we go, I would like to say we've had several good pastors. I loved every one of them, and I've missed them all. And we've only had 2 women, and they were amazing. And lots of good people in this church, and we've lost a lot of good people. So, but before we end, do you have anything else?
No, just
Okay.
that we found this church to be very kind-hearted and
We've
and
raised our kids
loving
here.
and very supportive.
Yep, all their
So-
kids have raised here, and we've had children and grandchildren do confirmation. So, but that's it.
I'm Duke Ronnet. I've been in the church ever since Martha and I got married. We joined the Methodist Church in Granite City, then moved out here and stayed with the church. Greatest time I had was when Ward Susanbach and Norma had the youth group, and I worked with them, and then they left, and Martha and I got the youth group, and it turned out to be the best years of our lives. We had more fun, a wonderful group of kids, and I miss them all. It's just been a wonderful church, everything. I've enjoyed working with this group here now for the anniversary, and I enjoyed being up here. We used to clean the church. I was part of that group. We'd come around and we'd clean the church, and it just, everything about it has just been a great time to be here. We had a lot of good pastors. I remember Charlie Chadwell was giving Martha and I our understanding of what marriage is going to be like. I never will forget him telling me it's going to be the hardest job of your life. He said marriage is a tough thing, and that stuck with us, and I really, really enjoyed the pastors we've had. And I enjoy it now, going through everything, and I wish Martha was here for it, and it's just been a good time. Our Sunday school class, the fisherman class, was great, and so I really don't have a whole lot of other things to say, but it's just been a wonderful church to be in. I like it. I think that'll be enough for me.
I'm Jane Newman from Greenville, Illinois. Worked in the kitchen at the Methodist Church for 50 years, probably. At the time that I was really getting into the church, in the kitchen, we were having big dinners. At that time, we did not have a dishwasher. We did not have, well, let me see. We didn't have a lot of things, let's put it that way. And we didn't have a big coffee pot. That's what I was thinking about. And we served a couple meals around 200 that we didn't have all these nice things that we have now. But we had a lot of nice people that were willing to come in and help and clean the dishes. The men did as much as the ladies did at that point, because we were trying to help pay off the church and pay off the kitchen and pay off a lot of bills at that point. So we had big meals. Vanny Hickey was the one who donated the coffee pot par, the big coffee pot pars, where we had coffee, 10 cup pots that we filled, and there were 4 of them on that cooker. And trying to think who gave the dishwasher. You'll have, well, probably Louise Wasmuth, which is a person that a lot of the people in the church don't know unless you're old like me. So, but Louise gave us the dishwasher, and that was really a big help for us, because one of the 200 people that we served, we did not have a dishwasher, which really took a long time getting the dishes washed. We didn't use paper plates at that point either. We used all china and silverware. And the big dinner was Southwestern Electric. It was a good day when the dishwasher got here, the coffee maker got here. It wasn't too good of a day when we saw Reverend Watson. Wasn't a good day for me anyway, when I saw him hauling the cooking stoves out the front door. I didn't know. I don't think that he consulted with any of the people that work in the kitchen about getting rid of those stoves. But we've lived on. We got electric stoves after that, and done fine. The kitchen goes on, and it will continue to go on. We do not have the attendance that we had then. So as a result, we are not having near as many dinners. Family dinners maybe, but not Valentine's Day and different days that we recognized and have dinners for, we don't have anymore. So don't know what else to tell you. So that's all. Thank you.
Hello, this is John and Linda Marcoot, and we've been lifelong members of First United Methodist Church of Greenville. I started going here when I was 1.5 years old, which was over 70 years ago. And the reason my parents chose this church was because her entire family, my mother's entire family, came to this church. Oscar and Lucy Brett, and then all of her sisters came here. And I grew up in this church with all my cousins, and a lot of fond memories of the old church. We always entered on the south entrance, and you'd go down a flight of steps to the basement, and that's where we had our Sunday school classes. And I remember, the thing I remember about the basement is the low ceiling. It only had like a 6.5 foot ceiling. And so it was a little bit different. The other thing I remember about it is as you went right down the steps, there was a wooden door in the floor. And I thought, boy, if I'm bad, I'm gonna get put in there. But it was basically for a submersible baptism. But I think as a little child, I did not know that. So then for church, we'd go up to the sanctuary, obviously, and have church, and they had a wing off to the left. And the fond memory I have about that is they had a balcony in the church, and the only time as kids, we got to go to the balcony was during Easter or Christmas. And at Easter time, us little guys would go up there and look down over the sanctuary, and we'd see all the ladies with their Easter hats on, and we'd make fun of them, of course. But that a lot of good fond memories of the old church. I remember obviously when the new church was built, and a lot of fond memories there also.
Then in 1980, we were married in Southwest Missouri at our church, but the following weekend, we had a reception here at this church. And I remember my mother-in-law John's mother, bringing me in and introducing me to Elnora Hawks, because she was the person who worked in the kitchen here and did the catering. And I remember coming into our reception, and it was just beautiful. She had decorated, she had the most wonderful food. I mean, I didn't have to do a thing, and it was just wonderful. And it was, my first very comforting event of my new church and my new church life for the rest of my life. Then and then a few years later, our 4 daughters came along, and they were all baptized in the church by Reverend Elmer Fenton. And then they were very active during their youth and throughout their childhood.
Yeah, they were very active in the youth group, and they were all close. They were all close in age, so that they could all go together. One of the highlights of that period for me was the youth group, with the permission of the church, took a trip to Washington, D.C., and it was a youth conference, and it was called LADC. DCLA, and it was a spiritual event for about 4 days.
It was kids all over the United States.
Yes, and the thing I remember the most about that was they was going to have a big to-do the last night on the lawn at the Capitol, and a severe storm came up, and of course everybody took off but us and maybe 1,000 other people. And when the storm finally passed, we went back out, and one of the musicians was playing music, and I happened to everybody was praying, and I happened to look up, and out of nowhere was a rainbow. And that was a very moving experience for me. So that was one of the highlights. And as Linda said, we've had many, many highlights at the church, and we've just been blessed to be a part of this association.
I also want to say that I was blessed to be on this anniversary celebration committee. And I want to say that I have grown just an absolute love for the people on the committee that I've worked with: Anna Piper, Marlis Henderson, Sue Wade, Duke Ronnet, Linda Slaymaker. There's others too, but we have worked together. We've worked diligently and very hard for weeks and weeks, it seems like, and everybody got along. Everybody was in step and in sync, and it was just really a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
My name is Kim Peterson, and my husband and I moved to Mulberry Grove in about 2014, and sometime after that we started looking for a church home. My youngest daughter, was going to school in Carbondale, and she kind of made sure that I went and found some place to restart my faith life. So she came with me that Sunday and kind of helped pick this church. And we went, and we felt it was a good fit for me and my family. And the thing that sealed the deal, actually, part was that this church very much reminded me of the church that I went to in high school. The physical building was very similar. We've moved quite a bit in our lives, and each time we did, we always found a new church home. And I always, because I had kids, I always kind of got involved through the kids' programs. Well, even though I didn't have any kids living at home anymore, that's what I did again. And I started out getting involved in Vacation Bible School and in the summer Simple Room program, where we help Simple Room feed about 30 to 60 of their kids for 6 weeks in the summer. The VBS that stands out in my mind was one of the first ones I helped lead here, and it had a farm theme. And so I thought it would be really cool if we had animals. So we kind of had a petting zoo every night. And we got Penelope the pig from Buckeyes came one night, and the local vet brought her horse one of the last nights. And people from the church helped out, and they brought their calves and their goats. My biggest concern had been that it was going to rain, and it didn't. So it was one of those that stands out in my mind as being something different. And everyone seemed to enjoy it. As I got involved in these things, I learned things about this church. Getting involved in Simple Room was a great way to meet other people at this church, and they were always so nice to me and so interested and welcoming, as they'd been established members, but I was so new to here and the area. And they made sure to always show me things that I could get involved in and help me walk in the door when it was kind of awkward as a new person. And I really appreciated that faith-driven welcoming that I got from this church. When I helped lead VBS, I also learned that this church had quite the heart for ministering to children, either at this church or in the community. Every time we needed something, there was someone around here who would step up with their time or their talent. And that was just something that means quite a lot to me personally, and certainly showed all to those around us our faith in our God and what we wanted to share. I've since joined Bible studies at this church, which have helped deepen my faith. And so standing here or sitting here today, I'm very thankful that my daughter pushed me in the door that Sunday and that I get to be part of this history.
Hi, I'm Lisa Isaac, and my husband Flint and I have been attending this church, I think, since 1989. Our daughter Kristen was born in 87, and somehow we found out about a Bible school, even for a 2-year-old. And so we brought her here, and we were really happy with the welcome that we received. And so we started coming here. I'll remember our first Sunday being here. I can remember where I was sitting on, the left side of the sanctuary. And after service, John and Penny Waite came up to us and introduced themselves. And they had a son that was in similar age to our daughter, Kristen. So we raised both our girls here, and we're very pleased with the church and the foundation that it helped with our children. We were talking, my husband and I today were talking about, there was an older couple, Tom and Jean Marty, that we just loved. And they were always so sweet with our children. They'd say something about them complimentary almost every single day that we saw them here at church. And that just, it made you feel really welcome. We also had the nursery with Mildred and Marlis Henderson, just how good they were with our children. And that just meant the world to us. Since then, our kids went through the youth group, and we had wonderful memories with the youth, and Kristen did, and Kelsey both, but Kristen especially got involved. They did kind of a music ministry for a while, and sang different churches and performed different things, and they really enjoyed that. And then they enjoyed the mission trips. And at some point, I ended up going on a mission trip, and after I went on one, I ended up going and helping lead several other ones because we no longer had a youth minister. What I am pleased about is that we do have a youth group, and we're really working on trying to continue to build that and have some fun memories. Recently we just went to the zoo. We're going to do some fun things this summer, and we just want to keep building and making sure people know how much they're really loved, that they're really important to us. I like being involved on mission trips and the youth, and I like being involved with the Blessing Box, which helps with food insecurity in our community. And I think that that's a really important thing for them to, for us to do. We're right here in the middle of town, and we need to be looking around us for people that we can help. All in all, I just want to say I love my church, and I hope that others feel the way I feel when they come into this church and congregation.
Hi, my name is Marlis Henderson, and I've went to First United Methodist Church ever since I was a baby. I was baptized in the old church that burned on New Year's Eve in 1973, and Then we had the educational building, and I went to Sunday school there. Before that, when we had the old Friendship House, I went to Sunday school there, and I love this church so much. There's so many memories, and the people that go, we're all a close-knit family. And if you need prayer, everyone is always so willing to pray for you, and that has definitely made a difference. I know when I had cataract surgery earlier this year, I was rather nervous and scared, but I knew people were praying for me, and when I got ready for the procedure, it was amazing of how calm I was. And there are so many memories, especially since my mom and dad, my dad and mom were financial secretaries for a long time, and I always helped them, so now I take care of that. So I guess I'm following in their footsteps. And it's just a wonderful church, and the people are so close-knit, kind. It's just like one big happy family. And I'm so glad I'm a member here, and I want to thank all the people that helped with the anniversary committee. It's been great to work with them, and we got along so well together. That's all I have to say, and I'm glad to be a member of the First United Methodist Church.
Hi, I'm Megan Waite, and I'm the children's director here. On a yearly basis, we have programs that are weekly. We have Sunday school every Sunday, and we have children's church most Sundays, with the exception of once a month. In our Sunday school program, we are going through the meta-narrative of the Bible. A meta-narrative is a large, overarching story. I believe that children need to know how every part of the Bible fits in with the large story of it. So we started in Genesis, and over the course of 2 years, we'll end in Revelation. We do children's church, which we do a little more topical, and sometimes based on what children we have, whether they're older or younger, we may choose different topics. We've done things like the armor of God, the theology of God, the theology of sin, different things like that. During the school year, we have a Wednesday night program, and we have been doing a lot of stories that are called Tales That Tell Truth. So we read these storybooks that go through a story from the Bible, emphasizing that it's a true story, and then it ties it into the gospel story. We've started this summer a story hour, and we sort of do the same thing with storybooks, making sure that they are very theologically sound, and we do crafts and things like that.
Hi, we're Doug and Pam Stroud. We've gone to the Greenville First United Methodist Church for 30 plus years, 34 years. Right after our son was born, when we moved to town, we kind of visited 3 or 4 different churches in town, and things we liked about each church. But this one felt like home, and we joined, and we've been active, and it's, we enjoy being part of the church family. So we're involved in different things in the church. One of my big things was the choir, which I dearly miss. one thing I'd really like to say, and I always said this when I was trying to recruit people for the choir, was, I could have a horrible, terrible day at work and come in and have choir practice at night, and I would go home in a totally different mood. So I dearly miss my choir family. I hope we could eventually have a choir back sometime. But we've both participated in mission trips, and that's a very fulfilling thing, but it gets a little harder as you get older. So working with the youth and that sort of thing. But one thing that I've been involved in recently with the church and its revitalization program, or efforts. One meeting I went to, they talked about prayer and how important prayer is. We all know prayer is important, but I volunteered to start a prayer group here at the church, which is a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it was something that I felt needed to be done, and it really has been a blessing. I've enjoyed it tremendously, and we don't have a lot of people that are able to come, but it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. So one of the things we were instructed to kind of talk about, I guess, was what we saw as the future for our church, and I guess it's one thing I really like about our church, and I hope that it's something that we can build on and continue to offer to the community. Our church is very welcoming and accepting, and I feel like we're pretty tolerant to those that don't necessarily look exactly like us, and that's a good feeling for me, and I wish there was a lot more of that in the world. So I hope that that's a future that continues for our church. Thank you.
I was in several committees over the years. I was the first one I was in was trustees, and I was on that committee for about 10 minutes, and they made me chairman. And that was back in the days where there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers here at the church, and I'm not a do-it-yourselfer, so I was chairman of a bunch of guys and ladies who were fixing things around the church that we don't do so much of anymore. So I'd help them occasionally, and I was like a third grader. They'd give me, hand me that screwdriver, get me that crescent wrench, and felt like a little kid, but it was fine. Then I became finance chairman, and I've been finance chairman for about 20 years, and both those positions had you on the church council. So we meet once a month, and it's always a good meeting and a productive meeting. We don't waste any time. It's something I've been pleased to serve on for years. I went on the mission trips also, and I think I went on 3 of them, and they were always a lot of fun, really. And you did things that helped people, but it also was good for yourself to get out of your comfort zone and repair houses and things like that. Again, not one of my strong points, but it was pretty fun to do. As far as the future of the church, as finance chairman, we're looking at ways that we can generate additional income and cut expenses where possible. I'm excited about the revitalization program that we've had here in the last 5 or 6 months. When you're in a small church, there's advantages and disadvantages. I think the biggest advantage is it gives you an ideal opportunity to give back to the community and to your church, and to make a real difference in the smaller churches. That sometimes at a bigger church you kind of get lost in the numbers. So.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, and hope this church is still around 50 years from now. Thank you.
I'm Kim Waite Pepler, and this is my husband Mike. I have been in this church since shortly after it was dedicated. So I've been here all my life, and I brought Mike along with me when we got married 25 years ago.
So some of my favorite memories of the church here are the mission trips that we've been on. I've been going to them for the last 14 years. So every other year we go, and just the ability to go out and see people in a different setting than Greenville, and to help people and to work with our youth on those trips was the most fun. and getting to know the other adults in the group that go along. So just have a good time. We hopefully help other people. So those are the things that I remember most right now about my time at the church.
And I have so many memories of being in this church and being a lot of memories in the kitchen. I often wonder like how many meals I've eaten in this church and in this kitchen. So many memories of being there with my grandma and her friends, working at funeral dinners and dinners for youth. She used to make us breakfast during Lent for the youth group. That was always a favorite time for me. And currently some of my main favorite memories are working down in our book barn here, and I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to be able to use the space to bless the community with literacy for kids around our area. So this church has always been a lot to us and to our kids, and it's so nice to see them being raised and have the opportunity to have, you know, some of the same kind of experiences that I had growing up here.
I'm Nina Bliss. I started working in the garden 3 or 4 years ago. And then I started going to church here because I was working in the garden. But anyway, and that was a good reason, I think. But I was raised on a dairy farm west of Patoka in Fayette County. And we had a big garden, of course, and produced a lot of vegetables and for canning. And that was a big part of my experience growing up. Seeing the plants and the flowers growing here in the church garden just kind of feeds my soul and spirituality. It seems like a lot that I'm doing in the garden is experimental. I believe several inches of the garden was filled dirt when they established the yard, when the church was built years ago. And then under that is clay, which is quite a challenge. But anyway, I'm trying to establish a lot of the garden in a no-till garden, mostly growing vegetables and flowers that will grow and vine upward, climb on that I have fixed for them to climb on. Earthworms are populating this area, this part of the garden, real well, which is a good sign of improved nutrient profile of the soil and garden produce. I like to sit at the little table early in the morning that I have down at the back of the church and watch the little wrenches come in and feast on the sunflowers and give thanks to the Lord for his creation. The garden reaches out, I think, to a lot of people when they drive by. They see it growing, and then especially the sunflowers, I think it puts a big smile on people's hearts when they see the sunflowers. So I hope we can continue this. It is a lot of work, and I need help. I need help in the garden. Anyway, it's a joy.
Ms. Norma Cantwell. Years ago, here at the church, I was known as Norma Wrench, and I'm the daughter of Dolores and Don Wrench, the granddaughter of Marie Stewart. And my time here at the church started when I was adopted by my parents, and I was 3 years old, and that was in 1970. We were at the old church at that time. My only memory of the old church is when they stuck us in those little angelic white robes with the big red bows, and the big red bow was like 3 times the size of my head, and I was the tiniest one there, so you couldn't see my hands or my legs or anything. And then I do remember the old church burning that night, and I remember standing and watching it burn, which was really a sad thing. I do remember being afraid in the old church because I was really small, and it was a really old building, which seemed kind of creepy to me, but everybody tells me it was just so beautiful on the inside. And then when the new church, the cornerstone was laid a couple years later, and the church was built, us kids were a little bigger then, obviously. We thought it was the biggest, greatest thing ever when that gym got in there, and we thought about all the great things, and the hallways were huge, and we just wanted to run around everything in the great big hill, and everybody's rolling down it. It was the best thing ever. It was just brand new, and all these classes, and I had a great time in all the Sunday school classes, having teachers, and Vacation Bible School every year. Mom always helped out, you know, her being a school teacher. And of course, I was always wanting to follow after Mom and, you know, help out, but she wanted me to actually be a part of the class instead. I remember church camp every year, and those were some of the best days of my life when they, oh, here comes some tears, when they sent us to Little Grassy and to El Dorado. And a lot of these parents paid our way, and we had spaghetti dinners and car washes to raise money. Everybody came out and got their cars washed, whether they needed it or not, because they wanted us to all be able to go. And it was our week away from our parents to go out and have antics and all kinds of stuff. And they would have tabernacle meetings at nighttime. And I think some of us must have got saved like 4 or 5 times, because every time there was an altar call, you went up with a friend, you know. So I think I might have got saved like 5 or 6 times. I'm not sure. But everybody said that sooner or later it would take, you know. So we all came back and sang the songs we learned, and that song, Pass It On, that we sang on Sunday, has stuck in my head, because every single year you had to sing Pass It On, you know, as if you'd never heard it before. And these friends that I had made, you know, here at this church were my friends at school, and we slept at each other's slumber parties and at each other's birthday parties and went skating together. And these were my long-lasting friends all of my life. And to this day, here we are 40 years later, and we're still going out to eat. And it's hard to believe it, but we're going to have a class reunion, our 40th class reunion, in September, which makes all you people so old. And I can't hardly believe that we are that old, but we had some really great times here at the church. As a teenager, I was president of the youth group, and I was in the choir, and I was here when Alan Gaffner was my Sunday school teacher, and he married my youth leader, which was Lori Gaffner. Well, of course they weren't, it was Lori Nielsen at the time. And then, of course, they got married, and everybody knew they were gonna. And we were cheering for that. You know, we just thought they were the greatest couple ever. And so we were always trying to get them all hooked up, and we were always playing pranks on them. And one particular time we went to youth conference, and Lori took us to Wren Lake. And everywhere we went, we tried to play pranks on Lori, because it didn't seem like she was that much older than us, but I guess she was. And she went in to have a meeting one time in Wren Lake's youth conference building, and she had a Volkswagen little light blue Rabbit car, and we put it in neutral in the parking lot. And I'm not realizing that there was a ramp on the parking lot. This car started rolling, and none of us teenagers could get it to stop, but there was another car in the parking lot to get it to stop, and it hit the car. And she came out, and instead of yelling and screaming like we thought we were in for it, you know, she was really patient and kind, and you know, obviously she wasn't happy, and we obviously had to pay for that. It was not a good scene, but you know, we had just talked about how you're supposed to respect your youth leaders and everything in this conference, and here we were out crashing our youth leader's car in the parking lot right after that, so that was not good. But on the way home from that same conference, here's Lori driving, and with 3 girls in the car, we hit a deer. So that car really wasn't gonna make it that day. And then a little while later, we ended up, you know, TPing the Kessinger's house, and and that same Halloween, we put not a toilet paper, but an outhouse in Lori's front yard. That was one of the funniest things. And all these parents, you know, they didn't act like they were in on these little antics with us, but they thought they were pretty funny. They were trying to discipline us, but they were kind of like, you know, like they loved us along with it, but they disciplined at the same time. You knew they were behind you. They just loved on every one of the kids, you know, to this day. You know, it's like, you know, these same people that are obviously, you know, aged, they still would hug us now, just like they hugged us then. They had no problem volunteering in our events. And, you know, we grew through those teenage years. I got married in this church, and I'd already been on the youth ambassador on the church board. And then I went to Greenville College. And my first year after Greenville College, I got married in this church to one of the boys in the youth group. And then I came back the following year and dedicated my daughter in this church. And then the following year, I brought back twin boys and dedicated twin boys. And then the following year, those twin boys got to rotate being baby Jesus in this church. And then, life went on. And, I look back from age 3 to age 18, and I just can't imagine all that took place, from all the way from this little girl who was shy, didn't really know her place after being adopted, had this praying mother and a praying grandmother who wanted her to fit in and have friends, to having the best friends I could ever have, and having everybody else's parents loving on me and praying for me, and a church that surrounded me with love and cared about me and made sure that I fit in and was participating and joined in everything throughout my whole childhood. I never felt left out. These were my friends at school. These were my friends throughout my whole childhood, all the way up to 19. And here I am, 2 years short of 60. And this is still the group that is still with me, that still prays for my life and prays for my children and prays for my grandchildren. This all was formed here. And I am so very thankful that I had the opportunity to have a good start. And it makes me think of, in Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, and the 6th verse, it says, "Train up your child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from you." And I understand that, you can't make it always work that way. Sometimes they don't always go the direction that you want them to go because they have choices in this life. I'm glad that my parents prayed for me, and my grandma, she was just such a gem. Everybody here knew her. She encouraged everything. She encouraged caroling, and she encouraged all the things. Every time this door was open, she made sure I was here. And sometimes it didn't seem like the funnest thing to do because I had other opportunities to go other places. But now I look back and I understand why it was important for me to be here. And then I had the opportunity to train up my children in the way that they should go. And now my sons are in church. And, my brother, he made the choice not to be around much. And I know a lot of people here wondered about him. Here he is, a year older, and he had a rougher life. But just in the past few years, he's understanding why I was in church. He's understanding how God can be a part of your life. Now his grandchildren are in church. And, he's understanding that prayer changes things. And it's important that you have a strong foundation and that you carry that foundation from when you're small, so that, the generation after you will carry it to the generation after them. And I'm just so appreciative and thankful for all the people that invested in my life.
I'm Pat Bond, and I have been a member of this church since my childhood years. And when I married my husband, Morris Bond, known as Buddy, he became very active in the church also. So going back to, I think, one of the projects that he was very passionate about had to do with the building program, which resulted in a new sanctuary being built due to a fire that occurred in 1973. It was very unexpected. I remember well, it was New Year's Eve, and we were at a gathering, and people were just socializing, and all of a sudden someone mentioned there's a fire in Greenville, and it happens to be the First United Methodist Church, I think. And so several of the people in attendance at that event took off and left the gathering and came back sometime later and shared the sad news that the church was probably not going to be able to be resurrected. It was destroyed because of the fire. So that created a new roadmap for the church, for sure. A building committee and many other committees that fed into the major building committee and years of making decisions and determining what that new structure would be. So my husband was the chairman of the building committee, and there were many talented people that were chosen to work alongside him from various sectors of life. There was a business developer, there were agricultural people, there were educators, and a contractor. And so they brought their multi-skills together that became very helpful in creating a committee that was able to really do the necessary research and put together the kinds of things that needed to happen for our congregation. And with that, I would just say that looking back, the success of that program had to do really with the people. The committee was very multi-talented, as I mentioned, but I would also mention the leadership skills. There was open communication, and as the project grew, I think people came on board and they felt that it was exciting. There was a lot of positive emotion, and our church was growing. We were increasing our membership in those years. We had great programming for all ages, children and teenagers, through senior adults. And we sponsored missionaries abroad. We had many, many exciting things that were attractive to people that came to us. And even concerned about the size of the sanctuary. Would it be big enough? And that was a item of concern. I think it was built originally to house around 300 people. So the enthusiasm and the emotion for this project was all-encompassing. I think it was because of the transparency, and everyone was invited to share their ideas and to certainly be heard. And I think people felt that was a welcoming trait that gave them ownership in the project, which was, I think, paid big dividends at the end. Some of the areas of concern, of course, were the cost. At that time, interest rates were very high, and it was very concerning about whether or not the cost was going to really be a factor that we would have to maybe cut some of the programming items, maybe size, those kinds of things, because of the debt that we were incurring. I remember the pipe organ was a subject of consideration. Pipe organs were considered to be an elite musical instrument in that era. And we were kind of at the beginning of change with music because of the cost, again, of the pipe organ. There was thought about other auxiliary types of musical options that would be more cost effective. But after the committees came together and there was a lot of discussion about that, the pipe organ was voted in. So that was certainly a subject of concern. I would say that at the end result of the project that there were many, many positive things, and one of them had to do with generosity. There were so many people that stepped up to offer to underwrite the cost of certain items, especially the stained glass windows and other items that were a part of the furnishings. And there was a financial projection as to when that church would be paid off. And one of the amazing things that my husband, being a banker, was so encouraged by was the receptivity of people stepping up to pay the debt, and we paid it off years way before they thought it was ever even possible. And of course, they would reflect on the fact that they felt there was definitely providential guidance with that. Everyone was working for a common goal, and the generosity of the people was unbelievable. So when it came time to move into the new building, there was much excitement, enthusiasm, and just a general consensus of positivity about the project and the way it had come together. And I think everyone was just very, very pleased with the outcome. One of the important considerations that the architect emphasized would be that the construction of the new sanctuary would be basically maintenance free. And one of the, well, there were several things that were subscribed to make that happen. One of them had to do with the roof tiles. They are called Ludowici tiles. That would eliminate the replacement of a roof every so many years, and those tiles are expected to last around 100 years. So that was a consideration that the architect was very firm about, because it would eliminate a lot of expense going forward for the congregation. Also, the interior, there's not a lot of paint, if any. It's wood interior, and that was another consideration for the maintenance piece to reduce costs going forward. I would mention also the stained glass windows. They were contracted through the architect's recommendation of an artist who is very worldwide known for that type of artistry. And those windows took many, many, many days to formulate the color and the glass and everything that went into those. And his name was Mr. Fry, Emil Fry, and he did come out, and we had a dedication of the windows, and I remember, I think he was present for that. And the windows were very costly, and that was a real concern about, again, the cost factor with interest rates being what they were. But people from the congregation stepped up and underwrote the cost of those, which was not expected, in addition to pledges they had made and other financial commitments to see this project through. That was another piece that was just very positive, and totally was something that seemed to be very contagious, because as we would have one family underwriting the cost, another family would come forward, another family would come forward saying they wanted to underwrite the cost of this specific requirement or possibility. So I would just say all those things were very unexpected, but it did also add to the positivity of the project in the end.
Hi, I'm Sandy Laurent, and I recently had started attending this year, but I have lots of memories. Currently, I'm in the prayer group on Wednesdays or Thursdays right now, and then I come on Sundays, and I've helped a little bit in the garden, not very much. But my memories growing up with family, Ronettes and Waits and all that, having different gatherings here, and when I was a community worker with Bond County Home Extension, not Home Extension, but the other one, the 4-H office, we had our home ec and general project show days here, and we had lots of judges. I had to find the judges, get the ribbons, and we had them here, and it was very accommodating. And we also, since I started working somewhere else, Kaskaskia College, then we used to have yoga here, and for years, until I was told we couldn't have anything off site, so then we had to stop offering yoga here at the church. But it's a beacon in the community, and I remember the trunk or treats where you served chili and all this stuff, and we would have a car uptown with candy in their trunks and then send people this way. And I also attend the movie nights they have. Almost, I forget how often, but they're really good movies. So that's enough about me.
Okay, I'm Sue McCaslin. I think most of you know me because I've been
probably a member of this church 30 some odd years. My husband and I came, I'm not sure what year it was, but we both worked on a lot of projects behind the scenes. And there's one memory that I think of every time I go through the narthex, and that is my oldest grandson. The second time I saw him, when I met him the second time, was out in that foyer. And it just happened to be Mother's Day. So I had my first grandchild with me on Mother's Day. That was quite a treat. So moving on, like I said, we both did a lot of odd jobs, a lot of behind the scene things. We did join a Sunday school class. There were several at that time to choose from. And the Sunday school class had not a policy, but a little plan that they followed. And once a month, they would go visiting with the shut-ins, and then we would come back and have a potluck dinner. And I remember Martha Ronnet talking about how she did enjoy visiting her shut-ins so much. And I thought, well, that sounds like a really nice thing to do. I used to go and enjoy visiting my grandmothers. So she took me with her one time. And it kind of opened the door in my mind for me. I'm not sure who I visited. We didn't really have an assignment, but anyway, we got the idea started, and then along come COVID, and then dear Martha passed away, and our Sunday school class had a total different population makeup. But the last couple years, I was thinking, well, first off, we after Nancy came, and after the first of the year, I think we heard the sermon on the first commandment maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. And that first commandment says, Jesus said, love thy Lord thy God with all your heart, soul, mind, and body. And she talked about all the really meat of the Christian faith that was in that. And then the second part was love thy neighbor as thyself. And so you're looking over the church, and I'm thinking, are we really living up to that commandment? Do people really feel like they are loved by the church family in this church? And so I brought it up in our Sunday school class if we wouldn't want to do a cookie visitation, sort of like they did before. And there were 4 of us that were pretty loyal with that, as much as we could be. And it was Jane Newman, Sue Wade, Penny Waite, and myself. And so we just started taking names of people that were then shut-ins, and we would go visit them once a month, taking them cookies. And the cookies is what gets the thank yous, but it's actually visiting them that is what really lights up their life, and so that they too can live and share that first commandment. So I think that almost sums up how I feel about this church. Early on, when my mother passed away and when Jim passed away, I thought, I'm going to be so lost and alone. And that was the exact, absolute opposite. People were so good to me. They were filled with the Holy Spirit, and that's what kept me coming. So with that, I think I will bid thee goodbye.
I'm Sue Wade, and David and I started in this Greenville church shortly after we were married. We were married in '57, and some friends had invited us, and we began up here. And of course, then when the kids came along, we became more active. And I think one of the most significant parts of this church is
our Sunday school class for us. It was very active. We would try to meet like once a month with an activity, and of course our kids would come along and they became good friends, and we got to know each other really well. And we had canoe trips on the Current River that George and Margaret Brown, who went to church here, kind of sponsored us. They would be our leaders and chaperones, and they would get everything together, and all we had to do was go. So we had a couple days of canoeing on the Current River. We helped out with fundraising dinners, and one particular dinner we served at Southwest Electric because they wanted to play bingo, and we couldn't play bingo here. Well, we had turkeys in roasting pans all over town that we carried out there, and the men did the dishes, dish pans in the halls, but we had a lot of fun doing it. I've helped with the flowers for the altar, and David's been an usher. I've helped with dinners that they served. I was employed at the time, but I would come of an evening and help serve. And we had a lady, Mrs. Hawks, that was very particular on how we did it. You serve from one direction, you take from one direction. And as for the future of the church, I hope we have more young families. It seems like that is where we got started and became really active. Some of the things I remember most was the March to the Manger. I came from a little church, and we didn't have the elaborate costumes and all that we have here. And I was still impressed with all that. And then Roy Finley sang Sweet Little Jesus Boy, and he did so good with that. And the candlelight services are very nice. Everybody seems to work together really well, no matter what we're doing. They work together. And for one of my special memories is Worldwide Communion on, I think it's the first Sunday in October. And the first Sunday after we were empty nesters, I thought how nice it was that our kids, no matter where they lived, they were having communion just like us. And I am so very thankful for all the wonderful Sunday school teachers that we've had at this church. I think that's held it together so well, and it's really meant a lot to our family because we knew these teachers were wonderful, dedicated Christian people. They lived what they said, and it meant a lot to our kids growing up.
My name is Vanny Hickey, and I had a friend living with me, and she invited me to go to the Methodist church where she attended, and so I went with her. This was in 1951, and I went to church with her for, well, I think a couple of years, and the pastor called on me and invited me to join the church, so I joined the church, and I think it was in April of 1953 when I joined. And the church has meant a lot to me over the years. I know when my husband died, they were very supportive. And then my daughter was seriously ill in the hospital for 3 months. And they contacted me and gave me support through all of that. And I also was a member of the Mary Martha Sunday School class. And there was a large group of women that became very close friends, and we met, of course, every Sunday morning, and once a month we had a luncheon together, and we met in our homes until we got older, and then we would go to a restaurant for a meal. But the church has meant a lot to me over the years, and now that I'm no longer in my home and living at the Glenwood, one of the members has been calling on me regularly, and I've kept in touch with the church, and it has meant a lot to me over the years.